Hello folks, my name's Hypocrisite and welcome to yet another episode of Hearts of Iron 4 The New Order as Magadan. So in the previous episode we have made some progress in our focus tree, and there was an attempt at our loot. We were raided by Yakutia, but of course we've repelled it, so it's not anything that we couldn't handle, as they have only like one cavalry unit. Cavalry. It's cavalry, not cavalry. So now we shall go down, well, the usual... we will do the usual thing. That is, we will go down our focus tree. So it doesn't matter what we will choose, because we need all of those focuses. That is, divide and conquer, Operation Intrude, and integrate the mercs to get our secured position. So let's get right into it. Maybe let's go with the Vozhd. Anastasy Andreevich Vonsiatsky. Or no, it's Anastasy Andreevich Vonsiatsky, or as he prefers to be known, the Vozhd of the Russias, is the leader of the fascist emigres in America. Once a close partner of the Russian Fascist Party, Rozayevsky's pro-German rhetoric drove him away. Leading his own political organization of white Russian emigres, the RFO, he has garnered significant support from the Russian refugees currently residing in the United States. Now that we have split from Rozayevsky, perhaps Vonsiatsky would reconsider his support for the Russian Fascist Party. Having the backing of the foreign-based RFO would give us a source of income untouched by the bandit raids of Rozayevsky or others. Along with this new stream of income, there are rumors that he knows one of the most dangerous men in America, a former OSS operative named Mikhail WerBell III. If there is a chance the Vozhd can put us in touch with him, we must reach out immediately. So the Vozhd focus tree is completed, so now we have a follow-up event. The Count of Fascism. Zdorowa, brother Matkowski, a man hailed from the piers of the harbor, a lean body and a pale face, with a hand stretching out in the early morning air, waving to Matkowski. Anastasy Vonsiatsky, also known as the Count of Russian Fascism, had set foot on the port of Magadan. He strode forward, his steps eager and his gait quick, impatient to meet his so-called equal in the old world. Covering his nose once he discovered the smell of the docks, he looked small, pathetic against the backdrop of wooden fishing ships about to depart into the morning light. Matkowski furrowed his eyebrows. No one in this world currently has the right to address him in such a way. Giving an awkward, pained smile towards Vonsiatsky, he and his bodyguards walked forward to meet the Count. This Count. Extending his hand, a gesture of hospitality, Matkowski said, "Здравствуйте. How has America treated you?" Vonsiatsky wasted no breath in clasping Matkowski's open palms. "Great, brother." He leaned forward, planning to catch Matkowski in a hug. Matkowski relented. America must have changed Vonsiatsky. The intimate gestures, the over-enthusiastic, unreserved spirit, and that greeting. It was all a bit much, coming from a fellow Russian. Still drunk in that spirit, Vonsiatsky said aloud, "It is the land of the free, all this." He gestured with his hand. "It's too small for us." "You seem to forget the reason you are here, brother," Matkowski said, a hint of coldness in his voice. No, he dipped his hands in his pocket. "This man is a gift from me to you." He showed Matkowski a black and white photograph of an American in a beret. "Tell me more." "Some political power?" "And now, let's go this part of the path." Welcoming WerBell. The son of a Tsarist officer in the White Armies, Mikhail WerBell III, became an OSS operative during the Great Patriotic War. Among the theaters he served in were then British Burma and former French Indochina. After the war ended decisively in Japan's favor, he returned to America to work a mundane job before deciding that combat was his calling. Since then, he has served in many conflicts the world over, earning him the fearsome nickname the Wizard of Whispering Death. Matkowski has decided that it would be in the party's interest to welcome this character of a man into our ranks. Along with him will come his entourage, a collection of mercenaries who have fought across the world and are now looking to fulfill any need for wet work. We will welcome him and his crew to the port town of Magadan. Once there, they will have their work cut out for them. They shall find that there is wet work to do. There is wet work to do to their heart's content. Alright, so now, since we have contacted Vonsiatsky, we have connections with several influential families and groups in the United States. So by spending political power we can improve relations, purchase things and invite Americans. So okay, waiting American support. So probably it's just a ticking event that will decrease our support with the USA. Okay, so maybe let's improve the relations, and that's probably it that we can do, or maybe not. Maybe we'll train the troops and we will get some industrial investments, because it's very important here. Alright, so now let's go to welcome WerBell, the Wizard of Whispering Death. A light curtain of drizzle had descended upon the port of Magadan. The clouds adorned their bodies with steely grey, and the waters of the harbour tugged and pushed their way inland. Their course halted the low-lying sea walls. Amid the piers, rows upon rows of wooden fishing ships lay steady, their hulls quivering in the fierce wind, shallow rain and restive waves. There was one vessel that stood out among the others, a metal deck, with rust coating its bows. The tumultuous air did not even seem to flinch it. Matkowski, followed by an aide bearing an umbrella to shield him from the downpour, walked toward to the strange vessel. If Vonsiatsky had been speaking the truth, then there was no question to the owner of this ship. Mikhail WerBell, legendary mercenary, the veteran of 1,000 wars worldwide, an infamous soldier of fortune, the Wizard of Whispering Death. Matkowski steeled himself to meet this legend of a man, before seeing a figure stumbling out of the ship, staggering towards him. Matkowski blinked. There was no mistaking it. The figure was WerBell, looking more green than in the photographs Matkowski has seen of him, a beret hanging precariously to his scalp. Matkowski tightened the pace, striding towards at such a pace that his aide had difficulty in following him. When he came face to face with WerBell, the man tried to give a clumsy smile, only for it to be mistaken for contempt. "Welcome," Matkowski said in English. "We have been expecting you, Mr. WerBell." "Privyet," WerBell said. "My tavarish," he continued in Russian, mixing it with English words when he had no clue which words to use. Matkowski, for his part, tried to dissuade him from bastardizing the Russian language, and occasionally a word or two made it through WerBell's manners, but he was inconsolable. With little correct Russian he spoke was sprinkled with generous helpings of fucking and shit. Blushing furiously in anger and embarrassment, Matkowski finally extended his hand. "Here's," Matkowski said, trying to keep his smile in place, "to a start of a beautiful friendship." WerBell clasped his hand with neither doubt nor comprehension. "Da, tavarish." Army experience +10, change in popularity of authoritarian democracy 5%, and the authoritarian democracy party will now be called Soldati bez granic. Basically, soldiers without borders. Or Militaires sans frontières. Blink blink. Alright, so now let's go with old money. The Russian fascist organization, Vonsiatsky's fascist political group, is home to some of the wealthiest donors within the Russian emigre community. Now that we have his backing, it is time to turn the funds that they have provided to a higher cause than parties and gathering in a land that will never be their home. The sons and daughters of Russia and America shall no longer find their money squandered by party functionaries for frivolous things. Now they support a real movement. The RFO shall channel their money from America and across the Bering Strait in the form of hard currency or even equipment, whether it be war or industry related. These funds and supplies will help us immensely in the coming conflict against the Splitters and the Reds. Soon we shall prepare for these estranged siblings of ours to return to a Russia they have known since their childhoods, a strong, capable Russia, one without an equal in this world. We will get some political power and some stability. Alright, so now we have 2 pieces of loot. So let's see, what should I go with? The industrial equipment is improving at a monthly rate of 2. The same goes for industrial expertise, and the same goes with agriculture. The academic base is improving at 1. But I cannot go with schools, so maybe let's go with agriculture, if it's possible. Yes, it is possible. Let's go with agriculture. Now I cannot do any more relations with America because I have very low support. And when it comes to warlord development, actually nothing nothing useful can be done. Alright, so all the money is completed, and now let's go with integrate the mercs. The mercenaries that WerBell brought in are leagues ahead of our current soldiers. How could they not be? After fighting wars in the world over, they are perhaps the most elite force in the Far East, surpassing even the Red Army remnants that the Reds have. They have proven themselves to be a capable asset to Matkowski so far, and although their loyalty is only as strong as their pay, they may well be worth the money. However, due to their independent nature, these mercenaries have been functioning outside the command structure, only taking orders from their commanders, and are generally uncooperative, except for direct orders from Matkowski himself. This practice must end. We will integrate the mercenaries into their rank and file. Having better skills does not mean that one is exempt from subordination to a superior. Cooperation with a mercenary like WerBell might be distasteful for some Russians, but the day that Russia can stand on its own is still in the distance. We will get some army experience, and WerBell has brought some interesting friends along. I wonder what are those friends. Alright, now with mercs integrated, let's maybe go with the president. To find our greatest possible supporter, we must look across the vast Pacific Ocean and set our eyes on the superpower of the Western Hemisphere, the United States of America. They are one of the 3 most powerful nations in the world and possess almost unparalleled industrial and military might. Matkowski has set his eyes on getting at least a small fraction of that might to support his quest to reclaim Russia. Sorry, my tongue slips a bit because, well, I've been reading for quite a bit. This is the second video that I record in a row, so sorry in advance. President Nixon is the nation's current leader, and so far he has not shown much willingness to involve America in Russian affairs, something we need to change. There are 2 requirements to gain American support. The first is to prove our regime can be a useful and reliable asset. The second is to show that we are different from the fascists they hate. Achieving both will be crucial if you want overseas aid to arrive. Well, you better do. The White Mouse. WerBell checked his watch. 20 seconds to 10 PM, Siberian time. He had his radio laid out in front of him, ready to transmit. Before the communication could proceed, however, he ordered all his men out of the room, preferring to be alone. While this matter was not confidential, he wanted to keep everything private. Tonight was a special night, a time to talk with an old friend, so long as she also held to her schedule, that is. 10 seconds out, WerBell rubbed his hands against his temples. The Siberian business was hard, and Matkowski was proving himself to be no pushover. WerBell smirked. The damned bastard would have his due. Fingers on the dial. 2 seconds out. When it reached 10 o'clock, his right hand snapped, finding the frequency that she used, locking onto it without difficulty. He reached for the microphone and spoke at it. "White Mouse?" he said, waiting expectantly for a reply. "Are you there?" "You're late," a kindly maternal voice replied. "Maybe age has slowed you down a bit after all," she laughed. WerBell smiled. On the other side was the White Mouse, one of the Brits who had the backbone to fight in a war and be good at it, and a comrade during all those times where the Americans lost their torch of liberty before falling down a set of stairs to disgrace. "Good to see you, wizard." He saw her firm, proud smile beyond the radio waves. "Likewise, Mouse," WerBell said, kicking back in his seat, the microphone standing precariously on his chest. "How is Kamchatka? Is it a shithole too?" He felt her frowning at him. "Language, wizard," she said, sighing. "But yes, there is not much to do around here. Still looking up to Uncle Sam?" "You know it," she said. "I know you've gone indie and all, but the OS, no, the CIA has a proposition for you." "Forget it," he said, fuming. "Make no mistake, he liked Nixon. Only a good American could bring America back together, and not those cowardly liberals with their talk of peace, land and bread. Fucking communists. He just couldn't let go. I still remember the last time I worked for those no-good bastards." The White Mouse hushed him. "We also have taken your concerns to mind." She spelled her plans out for him. His eyes widened. "Hell of a plan," WerBell said, laughing. "You mad bastards." The shadows grow. Alright, so the focus of the president is completed, so now let's wait for a follow-up event. The man in the White House. Nikolai Pietlin adjusted his tie. A mental tic, something he learned a long time ago in RFP. Looking over his desk, he ruminated on the task Matkowski had assigned to him. A typewriter, surrounded by rolls and rolls of ink, practically a luxury. Pietlin could not imagine writing those letters and appeals by hand. He had spent long hours in his office, and his fingers twitched as he prepared himself to type again. His assistants could only do so much. None spoke English, and to ask Matkowski for aid would overstep propriety. He sighed. He remembered the words Matkowski told him. "Convince the man in the White House," his master had said, staring into Pietlin's eyes without flinching. That is all. Matkowski did not like being taken lightly. At the best of times, Pietlin could see the old hardened spirit in him, a spirit of hope, of kindling, of a prayer for a new home. The winter had extracted its toll upon the man, and the gaunt, flushed cheeks were but symptoms of the payment. He looked beneath his desk, stacks upon stacks of paper, numbering almost in the thousands. Soon, upon the completion of his task, these would be sent to America, finding themselves in the mailboxes of senators, representatives, Russian immigrants, and other assorted people who were receptive to Matkowski's project. On top of the furthest stack lay a folder, bound in manila yellow. Plastered to the front of it was a label that read, "The Siberian Bill of Rights." This document contained Pietlin's personal ideas to solicit more aid, or at least sympathy from Americans. He wondered if Matkowski knew what his real sympathies were. He shook his head. Now was not the time nor the mind to wonder. He laid his fingers upon the keys of the typewriter, and the clanking began. Let's hope this works. It will increase US support by a small amount. I wonder how much support we have. Actually none. Very low. Okay, so let's go down this path. The Siberian Bill of Rights. A big obstacle preventing us from receiving support from across the Pacific is our ideology, as the American government is under the impression that we are on an oppressive and totalitarian regime like the ones they are struggling to fight against. To portray ourselves in a positive light. Perhaps it is time to begin making reforms, or at least appear to be making them. And a good start is a guarantee on the rights of our citizens. A formal document will be drafted and signed by Mikhail II, guaranteeing basic rights such as equal treatment, freedom of expression, and freedom of assembly to all people, ethnic Russians or not. Regardless of whether we follow this law to the letter, it will be a sign that we are eager to reform, and we are not the same as the German Nazis, something the USA definitely cares about. So the Siberian Bill of Rights will get us daily political power gain, some stability, and trade opinion factor for 730 days, and will increase the US support by a large amount. And I also think if we could take a bite from Yakutia, so maybe let's prepare for it. Oh, and actually now Buryatia was victorious. Sabin. I wonder if he will go down the authoritarian path, or will he stay libertarian. Okay, so the Bill of Rights is now completed, and let's go with promised reform. Now that we have stated our intent to ensure freedom for our own citizens, it is time to appeal to the United States directly, instead of beating around the bush. In an address made by our Vozhd in front of the citizens of Magadan and directed at the White House, he will state that the regime, even though it was born out of the RFP, is open to reform, and it will not fight it, but embrace it instead. The hope is that this great call for reform will reach the ears of the congressmen and even the president himself, and it will finally change their minds regarding the issue of Russia and how to best approach it. So we will change public meetings to allowed, some political power, some basic stability, some popularity in authoritarian democracy, and some US support. Actually, it reminds me of this case of citizens of Chelyabinsk that wrote a letter to Biden and addressed him as the president, before his inauguration, that Biden should it's actually they actually asked him to help Chelyabinsk, the city, and to end the problem of huge pollution that actually is there. So yeah, it's kinda like this, but actually Magadan is a bit closer to United States than Chelyabinsk, which is somewhere around here. Where it is? Oh, it's here. It's Chelyabinsk. So yeah, kinda far away. Alright, so now we can initiate the raid. So let's go with it. Maybe they'll surrender. But before we do this, there is an event to read. The Siberian Bill of Rights. This is far too liberal, Petlin, Matkowski said, holding back his anger. It seems almost socialist to me. He put the set of files down and pressed his index finger against it. This is not acceptable. It was inconceivable that you would present this to me in the first place. How could he do this? Pietlin, the man he considered to be almost a brother to himself, his own foreign minister. He stared into Pietlin's eyes, finding fear and obedience settling their weight into his psyche. Maybe this was not intentional after all. Sir, if I may explain myself, Pietlin said, freezing his hand before it could correct his tie. The Americans are different from us. We need to... I get your point, Pietlin. It's just... Matkowski said, waving off Pietlin. This is not what I, not we, stand for. When I read your document, I found phrases like... When I read your document, I found phrases like the right to assembly, right to free speech. These are all dangerous ideas, not fit for Russia. Their rebellious intent practically jumps off the pages, Matkowski sighed. Just what the hell were you thinking, brother? Pietlin gathered himself and stood straighter. Sir, if I may insist, my ideas can still be useful, not only in convincing the Americans, but the Russians as well. He cracked his knuckles in anxiety. I have faith in the strength of your ideals and conviction, sir, I do. I beg you not to mistake my incompetence as rebelliousness. Matkowski felt a rare moment of generosity, stretching his arms wide. Pietlin, he said, tapping his foreign minister on the shoulders. I would never. You have been with us since the beginning, closer to me than even my chancellor, he whispered to Pietlin. Now, help me with all these. I am afraid that your brother lacks the skill necessary to convince the Americans. Yes, Pietlin said, his voice trembling. I will do as you say. Good. Now, cut back. We can't afford all of this. Make holes and loop them. Dismissed. Pietlin left the room in a great hurry. Sacrifices have to be made. Alright, so Yakutia actually paid the tribute, so now we have some political power and some loot. So maybe... Oh, I can't. Oh, they don't even have any loot. I thought that I could just attack Alden as well, but whatever. Actually, we can improve some relations, so maybe let's do this and maybe let's purchase some guns, because we will need them. Funnily enough, Yakutia actually sent us an ultimatum. We will not back down, dude. We will not back down. We have actually almost attacked you before. Like 2 days before, maybe 1 day. We will not back down. We won't back down easily. So sorry, man. Alright, so promise to reform is now completed, but who is she? Nancy Wake. Did I... Oh, because the focus stated that WerBell will bring some friends. I didn't know that those were generals. Alright. Okay, so now let's go with Operation Intrude. The port of Magadan is one of the biggest Russian naval facilities still not occupied by foreign enemies. When the weather permits it, ships, Russian or not, regularly make stops for numerous reasons. However, the port also has one more use, to become a receiver of American equipment and supplies. Thus, our leader Matkowski has devised a plan to make an offer the USA will not refuse. Magadan is quite close to the Japanese home islands that are just across the Okhotsk Sea, and a radar station here would give our future allies the opportunity to spy on their sworn enemies from a closer distance. Perhaps this will make them understand the benefits we can offer, and they will decide to help us. So we have acceptable ports for foreign ships away from praying Japanese eyes. We will get a naval dockyard, 2 naval bases, and 1 radar station. That's actually pretty good. And why it began here and not here, I have no idea. I mean, the border conflict. I don't know if I can, you know, if I can make it. Well, I hope I will make it. For fuck's sake! It's just because there was no people at the border at the right place. For fuck's sake, really. And what What actually will we get, huh? Garrison slaughtered, great. Yeah, go fuck yourselves with those dockyards. I don't need them actually. I am mad. Alright, so let's go with another focus, the Tsar. Just barely separated from our territory by the vile forces of Radzaevsky, Chita has more in common with us than most other warlord states. An evolution of the diverse emigre movements and organizations that appeared in Harbin. The regime has based itself not on fascism but Tsarism. The group of white generals behind Chita's foundation approached Mikhail Andreevich, a descendant of the Romanovs, yet one with little legitimacy as a contender for the throne, and took a part of Yagoda's empire as it collapsed. We share a lot in common both in our ideologies and our enemies, and Mikhail seems eager to cooperate and forge a closer relationship for now. It might be difficult due to the lack of an overland connection, but that will not stop us from making contact with our new friends in Chita. God bless Uncle Sam. Mason felt nervous. Even though he was an American agent, trained in both formal and spoken Russian, he had never conversed in any depth with the soldiers, much less given instruction and introduction to American weapons. He smirked. There was an irony to it all. Despite having been schooled and educated in one of the most renowned countries on earth, Mason was as out of his depth as the illiterate Russian fascists standing before him. The cold, chilly air of the early morning gave his percussive heartbeat a tinge of anxiety and excitement in his veins. The training fields were empty save for a few animals scurrying underfoot. An officer prefaced him. From the honorable nation of America, he goes. Mason has come. A bunch of feel-good bromides and legalese, but he guessed that the soldiers needed to respect him first before they would be willing to listen to him. He caught a few of them eyeing the equipment he brought here. Mason didn't think it was all that impressive, considering the things he had seen while working in the agency, but again, cultural and technological differences. After a few hour-long anxiety-ridden minutes, it was finally his turn to speak. He drew back his tongue and lashed it out, throwing the dust of the language he seldom used. "Hello," he said. As the officer had said, "My name is Mason." He grabbed an M1 Garand and held it against his shoulders. "This is the Garand. You." He pointed to a random soldier in the crowd. "Fire your weapon. See how fast you can do it." He pointed to a target in the distance. The soldier had to eject the casings every time he fired. Sometimes he resorted to hitting his rifle with his wrist before it worked. "Now watch this." He smiled. He aimed the Garand and fired 8 shots in succession. His streak stopped by the ping of the gun. He laid the rifle beside him, his butt on the ground. "And that is American firepower," he said to the awed fascists. "Any questions?" Okay, so 350 units of American support and anti-tank equipment is added to the stockpile. Actually, that's something that we actually need. Alright, so the focus is completed, so now let's read the event. The Pretender. To the Honorable Claimant to the Throne of Russia, the letter read so far. We have come to beseech you for your aid against our mutual enemy, the traitor Konstantin Radzaevsky. No, the letter ought not to be so direct. Putting down his pen, Matkovsky laid his hand across his face and sighed. Leaning his forearm against the table and propping his head against his open palm, he stared at the page, waiting to be filled with his writing. His tea sat right below him, its smell tempting him. Matkovsky tapped his feet. He has no time for that now. For the first time in a long while, Matkovsky found himself adjusting his glasses, his fingers wrapping the table in sequence. 1,000 questions awarmed his mind. What if the Tsarists reject the treaty? What if they find the terms unacceptable? He shuddered to think of what would happen if both sides did not cooperate against Radzaevsky. Someone knocked on the door. Rather than answering, Matkovsky's index finger mimicked the rhythm on his table. Standing from his seat, he said aloud, "The letter is not ready yet. Go away." The knocking stopped. He looked at the letter, clapping his hands together and drawing a deep breath. He sat down, toying with the pen as he thought of what to say to Mikhail. "We appeal in the name of our old friendship," he scribbled without much thought, "in the anti-Bolshevik front. As we all know," he found his hands picking up speed. Before long, he would stand and say, "The letter is ready. Come in." So, we will get some political power, and Chita will get an event, an offer from the moderates. So we are the moderates? Oh, well, actually, yeah, we are the moderates. Okay, so now let's go with smuggling routes. The biggest problem with reaching a mutually beneficial relationship with Tsar Mikhail's state has been finding an answer to the question of how we reach them, but we have developed a solution. It is a well-known fact that here in the Far East, the settlements and the links between them are few and far between. This means that if we are careful and closely examine our pathways and schedules, it is actually possible to create a route or even several of them that will be able to connect us to Chita through secret means. These routes, guarded by our best men, will allow for a flow of weapons and resources that goes both ways, and even the transport of emissaries between our states. If we can smuggle anything we want to and from Chita, that is a good first step in overcoming geography and establishing diplomatic relations. So we will get 350 units of support equipment, anti-tank equipment, and stout artillery, as well as 1 infrastructure. Good. Alright, so we actually have a lot of new commanders and a lot of new field marshals. So the one of them is John Peters, Special Forces Attack and Defense. That's actually pretty nice. Chiyoki Keda, which is not a mercenary. Okay. Gary Patrick Hemming. He is a commando, mercenary, and reckless. Gary Mogach, and he's cautious, mercenary, and engineer. Nancy Wake, who is a commando and war hero. And of course, Mitchell WerBell. He's media personality, mercenary, trickster, charismatic. Okay, that's actually something useful. So, smuggling routes are now completed, and let's go with put aside our differences. We and the royalists of Chita have much in common, yet we have many disagreements as well. We share a common background, but while they trace their roots to the old ways of the Tsar's empire, our ideology stems from a new and fresh movement, that of Russian fascism. Of course, it is the fate of the old Russian generals and politicians in the power of a monarch that separates us, but that does not make reconciliation impossible in the dire environment. To face the common enemy that is Rodzajewski's fascist party, we will make a move showing our friendship and respect for Chita by proposing a pact of cooperation and non-aggression with them. If they accept, then we may even have a chance to strike at Amur with more safety. Okay, so we've put aside our differences, and I also improved our relations with Americans, and now the support is moderate, so we can purchase some trucks, which is will be pretty useful, I think. But before we get into something further, let's wait for the event. And we also get some research finished. The Treaty of Cooperation. Here is the treaty that the Tsarist sent, Petitly said, placing the draft of the agreements on the table. Sir. He almost adjusted his eye again, before the stern stare of the Vozhd stopped his left hand. Yet those eyes did not judge Pietlin's mannerisms in any detail. They went up and down the document, examining its fine print, looking for chinks in the deal that the Tsarists, or the RFP for that matter, could exploit. No word on it seemed to raise any reaction from Matkovsky beyond an occasional rise of the eyebrows and a nod. Putting the document aside, Matkowski turned to address his foreign minister. "Pietlin," he said, chilling every bone in the minister's body. He gulped. It was the moment of truth, where the Vozhd would deliver his final verdict. "Good work," Matkowski said after a few moments. "You exceeded my personal expectations. Before I sign this," he picked up his pen, toying with it. "Is there anything else you'd like to add?" Pietlin drew a deep breath. "No," he said. "There is none." Matkowski's hand promptly drew a signature on the document. "It is done." He dropped the pen and rose. "Deliver this to the representative of the Tsarists and tell them that the Vozhd accepts the deal, and death to Rodzaevsky." Standing in front of Pietlin, he offered his hand. "I appreciate that I have at least one competent person in charge of affairs around here." A smile, a rare thing for Matkowski to show. Pietlin shook his hand. "Yes, sir, I will do as you say. Your compliments are high praise for my blood and station, sir." Matkowski patted his shoulder. "All in day's work." Pietlin turned and left where he came in. "Death to Rodzaevsky. So we will enact a non-aggression pact with the Trans-Baikal Principality, which is Chita. And let's go with divide and conquer now. Since the day we split from the RFP hardliners, Rodzaevsky's forces in Amur have been the biggest threat to our survival. No other frontier is as heavily guarded as our southern one, and it's not uncommon for the situation there to escalate into raids and skirmishes by the border garrisons. Now that we have found allies in Chita, we can make a show of force to demonstrate our power and test our capabilities as well. We will find the perfect moment to strike, and when we do, a raid larger than any other we've launched will begin. The Tsarists shall help distract Rodzaevsky's army in the east, and we will hopefully improve our position in the freezing lands of western Siberia. So Amur gets Advanced Saboteur's Strike. So hopefully we will either, chomp up whole Amur, or we will split it into Chita and our lands. I don't remember actually, because I've played Magadan a few months before, but I don't remember how this one turns out. So before we go into the next focus, let's go with support weapons, number 3, and house engineering. It's 7 years ahead, so let's go with infantry anti-tank. And now let's go with divide and conquer, start. Alright, so now the focus is completed, and I hope wait, which one should I choose? Yeah, Kuznetsov, and the field marshal will be maybe WerBell. He'll be, I think, the best choice. Now let's put her into position, and now let's go with the focus. Alright, so the ready at last focus is actually declare the war on Amur, I think. Alright, so now maybe what's the time? Maybe let's end the episode here, and in the next episode we will go with the secured position, and we will prepare the mercenaries, the WerBell's mercenaries, to maybe claim the Magadan for themselves. So, I hope that you've liked this episode. Be sure to leave a comment, a like, and to subscribe to my channel. And there is also a Patreon that you may pledge to. I will leave a link to it in the description. And see you in the next one. See ya.